1971 Pakistani tour party to England contained one player who must surely rank as the rawest, most conceited cricketer ever to represent his country: me. Zaman Park is not a very large area, but it has spawned an amazing number of first-class cricketers. The ages would range from 10 to 40, and I was very much last on the list when it came to team selection. As the captains picked their sides, I would stand there, crimson with embarrassment, knowing that I wasn't rated. There's two kinds of people who get picked last. There's those that accept it, and those who genuinely cannot live with it. No longer was it a necessary evil to play cricket with my elders in Zaman Park. Now it became an obsession. After school, I'd play in Zaman Park, and then I'd make our servants and my sisters bowl at me for hours in at sunset. I'd move the game indoors with a resulting threat to the well-being of mirrors and windows. No wonder two of our servants left to seek alternative employment. Bowling till midnight wasn't on the agenda. And Kobe, this is what obsession looked like for him. This is bullshit. We got practice. I want to practice. This is ridiculous.
And that just about carried.
The remarks were made to hurt me. I was so angry and humiliated that I vowed to prove them wrong. I would go back to the drawing board and sort out my bowling action. I'd make myself indispensable to the side as an all-rounder, even if it meant working myself into the ground. And this is the pattern again you see across all the legends. Being underestimated isn't a setback for these people. It's like a driver, it's an engine that just pushes them forward. They use it as fuel. From then on, I would be a fast bowler or nothing at all. The days of compromise were over. The 1971 Pakistani tour party to England contained one player who must surely rank as the rawest, most conceited cricketer ever to represent his country: me. As far as I was concerned, I was going to be the star of that trip. My entry into the test arena was overdue. I would daydream about the hundreds I'd score of bowlers who had just regained the Ashes in Australia, and had settled for nothing less than 5 wickets each innings. My first stint in nets made me realise that things were going to be little different from my preconceptions. I strode up in my new McClellan kit, wearing my brand new boots, and proceeded to ease into my bowling. My first delivery missed Aftab Gul's nose by a matter of inches. Unfortunately, he was batting in the adjoining net. My second delivery was no trouble to the batsman, but perturbed a spectator. It hit him on the head. He beat a hasty retreat, but by now it had dawned on me, even in my overconfident mind, that something was wrong. I was sent into a net on my own to sort myself out. That is a quote from Imran Khan's Autobiography. It was published in 1983, so it actually only covers half of his career. He made his debut in 1971 and then retired in 1992 after he won the World Cup. Really great read, and I can tell in those days it sounds very much like his own writing. I don't think he had much help, but a really interesting read and quite humorous actually. He's a funny guy. So I learned a lot about him. Obviously I know that he's a Pakistani cricketing legend. He was ex-Prime Minister. He's currently in jail, sadly. But I read this book to learn about him as a cricketer, and I find him fascinating. He's very opinionated. He's a strong captain, and I'm going to share some of the things that I learned and some of the cool stories, as always. But the quote that I just shared, I really liked it, and I chose it as an opening quote because it tells you exactly who Imran Khan was before the greatness, and it's not what you'd expect. He's quite conceited. He's quite arrogant, and he wasn't a humble kid quietly working his way up. There's someone who arrived in England who was convinced he was already a star, nearly took out a teammate with his first ball and hit a spectator with his second, and got sent to a net on his own to sort himself out. The arrogance is almost funny, but what's important is that he's willing to tell you about it. It's not about protecting what, is a legend. He's very humble, and he's showing the construction of the legend. And throughout the book, he's not shy about sharing the privileges that he had. He's very open about it. But the construction of this legend starts a little bit earlier on. It doesn't start with the World Cup that happens later. It doesn't start with him being, one of the world's best all-rounders ever. It starts with a 19-year-old who thought he'd arrived, and then he got humbled immediately. And one question run through everything was, what made him great and what made him turn into the icon that he was? And I want to start here with this story, and it's an embarrassing moment for him, but it's where the story actually begins. Zaman Park is not a very large area, but it has spawned an amazing number of first-class cricketers. The ages would range from 10 to 40, and I was very much last on the list when it came to team selection. As the captains picked their sides, I would stand there, crimson with embarrassment, knowing that I wasn't rated. So that's the beginning of the story. He wasn't talented. He didn't have a gift that set him apart straight away. The beginning was him standing there waiting to be picked, and he knowing he wouldn't be. And I think we've all felt like that at some point. But to think that he felt like that at the start, and then it was really interesting just learning the journey about how he evolved into the cricketer that he was. But here's what matters about that moment. There's two kinds of people who get picked last. There's those that accept it, and those who genuinely cannot live with it. And Imran was the second type. He couldn't believe that he was getting picked second. He felt insulted, he felt bad, and he wanted to improve on it. And this is a pattern I keep seeing across every legend I read about. The origin is really genius and talented. You do get, very talented kids who are bred from a very young age, like prodigies such as, Tiger Woods, for example. But you've got guys like, Sugar Ray Leonard, who I mentioned in the last podcast episode. He went to his first fight. He had his first fight in the box gym, and he had a bloody nose, and he left, and he didn't really want to go back. But the moment that it changed, there's always a specific moment, in these biographies and books, a switch that flips. For Imran, it turns out that the moment was when someone tells him the truth, a coach, and instead of breaking him, it lights something up inside him. Nasir Ahmed was game superintendent at Aitchison College, and I can remember vividly the day he changed my attitude to cricket when I joined prep school. I had just compiled 12 runs in a marathon innings of 4 balls when Nasir Ahmed came up to me and dissected my gem of an innings. He called it a slog and atypical of my efforts. If I did it again, I wouldn't be in the prep school team. He said he didn't mind how long I stayed at the crease or how slowly I scored, as long as I followed the two basics of batting: playing back to the ball pitched short and forward to the delivery that was pitched up. In both cases, a straight bat was essential, not the carving, flashing blade I tried to wave around with abandon. That piece of advice was a watershed in my career. From that day onwards, my batting improved dramatically and I enjoyed my cricket immensely. No longer was it a necessary evil to play cricket with my elders in Zaman Park. Now it became an obsession. After school, I'd play in Zaman Park, and then I'd make our servants and my sisters bowl at me for hours and at sunset. I'd move the game indoors with a resulting threat to the well-being of mirrors and windows. No wonder two of our servants left to seek alternative employment. Bowling till midnight wasn't on the agenda. So he was obsessed, like he says. He made his servants quit because he wouldn't stop practicing. Think about that. Before this moment, cricket was something that he did. He comes from a family of cricketers. 8 of them played first class, and I think 2 of them captained Pakistan. So he had a completely different relationship with the sport, and I think this is where legends are actually made, when that obsession gets triggered and it just drives them forward to get better. Ray Leonard talked about the exact same thing. The moment boxing stopped being a sport and became the place he felt most in control, that's the switch. And Kobe, this is what obsession looked like for him. One day, the gym got flooded before practice. Every other player sprinted out into the hallway celebrating, high-fiving, happy to have the day off. Every single one of them. And this is what he said: "This is bullshit. We got practice. I want to practice. This is ridiculous." Kobe slamming a ball off the floor in fury while his teammates celebrated no practice. And that's what that switch looks like when it's real. When not practicing physically bothers you, it puts you off your day. And when the day feels off, it's a problem. It's not a gift. That's when you know, like, you're built differently. Tyson Fury, for example, he said, again, I mentioned in the last episode as well, in his show on Netflix, At Home with the Furies, he mentions that training is something that he has to do every day. It's a part of his identity. He has to do it, otherwise the rest of the day he doesn't feel right, he doesn't feel good. And that's the same with all of these athletes as well. When they don't get their practice in, it does bother them. It physically, mentally, they can't hack it. They have to improve. That's the drive that they have. So the obsession kicks in for him. He's working harder than everyone around him, but the problem is that obsession at that age, like we read earlier, inflates the ego, and it does that before the game even has a chance to humble you. So he was 16 and he'd already decided he was going to be a batting legend. The bowling was just something to fill time between his centuries. Like, he didn't place much emphasis on it. And he says this: I accepted the invitation as no more than my due. Even though I was 3 years younger than the other trialists, already I had come to terms with the fact that my colossal talent had catapulted me beyond my age group. When my turn came to bat, I strode to the net with my customary aplomb. I raised my collar in the approved superstar manner, tucked up my cap, and took my time in marking my guard. I faced no more than a dozen balls before one of the selectors shouted, "Next, please," and I had to vacate the net. I consoled myself with the thought that I had obviously shown enough promise to convince the selectors of my worth in just a few minutes. Conveniently, I ignored the fact that 6 of the dozen deliveries had completely beaten me. So 6 out of the 12 balls beat him. He didn't put bat into half the balls that he faced, and he sat there convincing himself that he impressed them. So the fact that he was so delusional at that age is quite remarkable. But he is only 16. And then what happens next is really interesting though. The selectors pull him aside, not to send him home, but to tell him that he's got the best bowling action they've seen. He gets selected not as a batsman, but as an opening bowler and a tail end batsman, which he's devastated at. Like when he is bowling at the nets, the whole nets practice comes to a standstill, and then that's when the coach says he's got the best bowling action. Then it gets quite personal for him. There's a moment where he's in the team, and this moment really shapes him because it's the first time he sort of faced real hard critical feedback and backbiting and gossip. The turning point came at Selkirk, Scotland. Asif Iqbal and Aftab Gould sat talking about me, aware that I could hear them. Their verdict was that I would be lucky to get into the second 11 of the English club side, let alone a county team. Their remarks were made to hurt me. I was so angry and humiliated that I vowed to prove them wrong. I would go back to the drawing board and sort out my bowling action. I'd make myself indispensable to the side as an all-rounder, even if it meant working myself into the ground. I decided that I wouldn't make myself available for Test cricket again until I was sure I'd no longer be humiliated by my own inabilities and my teammates' scorn. And these weren't strangers, these were his actual teammates. They were senior players that he respected and he looked up to. And the fact that they made sure he could hear every word is quite brutal. So the anger and humiliation that he felt in that moment became his fuel to kind of push forward and practice. And the criticism that he had, I don't think they were trying to do him any favours. They weren't trying to fuel him, they were trying to hurt him. But that is the thing that drove them. And this is the pattern again you see across all the legends. Being underestimated isn't a setback for these people. It's like a driver, it's an engine that just pushes them forward. They use it as fuel. They use it as fuel for the car that is themselves. And Kobe had this version of himself too. He had a playoff game. He missed 4 shots in the fourth quarter. The Lakers lost, and a TV poll came out asking fans whether the Lakers were better off with him or without him. And then 55% said without. And then this is how he responded. He went in the gym that night and shot until 3 or 4 in the morning. There's no crying, there's no running to lay up with some woman he just met in the club. None of that. He went straight to the damn gym. So that's the response that separates them from everyone else. When it goes wrong, they don't go home and feel sorry for themselves. They go back to work that same night. And another scenario just came up to my head. When he missed those 3 air balls in his rookie season, he sat and he had his head in his hands. And the reporters were asking him after, like, "Oh, you had your head in your hands. Are you upset? Or how are you feeling?" And then he said, "What does feeling have to do with it? What does feeling have to do with it?" What I was thinking was, why I missed those shots so I could go back and work on them. That is their mentality. He took emotion totally out of the game. It wasn't even a consideration to him. He was thinking about what he can do better. He was disappointed with how he performed. That's how they think. They're disappointed with their losses, and then they help that drive them home. So after Selkirk, Imran goes to Worcestershire, and he's young. He's away from home for the first time in his life. He's going to school there. He's been publicly humiliated by his own teammates. He's got a real drive behind him, and now he has to rebuild his entire bowling action from the ground up. And there's nothing glamorous about this phase. It's just work and pure grind. The school gymnasium held my evening cricket matches with a tennis ball as I strove to improve my bowling action. I had watched the great Australian Graham Mackenzie during the 1971 season, and I tried to model myself on him. That was fine as long as I bowled slowly, but as soon as I tried for some extra pace, I ended up with my usual wayward action. I was near to despair when a chance encounter on the street gave me a new hope. So he was near to despair. He was alone in a school gymnasium, just with a tennis ball, and he was doing that day after day. And then there's a teammate, John Parker, who gives him a technical suggestion. He said to add a jump before the delivery to get his body side on. And it was a radical change to everything that he'd built. And anyone that has played cricket, like me, knows that these subtle changes that you make to your bowling action, for someone who is bowled for years and years, it's very hard to tinker with their bowling action because it's a habit, it's muscle memory. So the fact that he's making these changes shows it wasn't easy. It's not an easy thing. And here's what I find really fascinating about that moment. Parker actually told him not to do it. He saw him and he said that the risk was too great, and he said you might lose the natural assets you already have, and he said to him to go back to his original action. And this is what happened. I decided that I would stick to my new method, incorporating the jump. I was in a great dilemma. I desperately wanted to improve on the existing model, which wasn't good enough. I thought my original action had no potential for improvement and a radical overhaul was necessary. For the rest of the winter, I practiced hard with a tennis ball, searching for rhythm. So he'd heard the expert and he respected advice, but he ended up trusting his own judgment for it, and that takes a very specific kind of self-awareness combined with courage and balls, to be honest. And it reminds me of Tiger Woods. He changed his swing about 4 times. Now, a lot of people will say that they weren't all necessary, but I do remember his second swing change with Butch Harmon. He went through a period of not winning anything for about 12 or 14 months, and then after that, he was a rocket. He made that change for the longer term. So the fact that Imran Khan's made this change now, it means that for the next 20 years, he can enjoy a career where he's bowling at his best. So Parker, it was sensible advice, but Imran could see his current action had a ceiling. He was never going to break through. He was willing to get worse before he got better. Most people stick with what's comfortable. That's what's already working, even if it's not working well. Imran chose the hard road and spent an entire winter in gymnasium with a tennis ball to learn it. And then comes the moment every legend needs. The first real confirmation that all the work that he'd put in was worth it. And it doesn't arrive in a stadium. It doesn't come in a test match or a World Cup. It comes from one completely offhand remark. And here it is. Then I gave Rodney Marsh a fright with a bouncer that hit him on the forehead. Where did you get that extra yard of pace from, he asked me, shrugging off the blow. It's funny how such insignificant remarks have such significant effects. After that innings, I was an authentic fast bowler in my eyes. So Rodney Marsh is one of the toughest, most no-nonsense cricketers Australia ever produced. He's not a man who would hand out compliments for free. And the fact that he asked Imran where he got the extra yard from gave Imran Khan a moment to sort of appreciate and reflect that he is actually a fast bowler now, because another theme in the book is he loves bowling fast. He loves bowling bouncers. He wants to see batsmen hoop around, duck, dodge and dive. And he says that that's what every fast bowler really needs, an aggression, like a need, like a desire to really bowl fast at the batsman and strike fear in their hearts. And I think it shows that his appreciation for Rodney Marsh's comments it shows how fragile he was at the start. Like, you could do all the work, you can go to the gym, work on your action, and you still need someone to confirm it's working before you fully believe in yourself. So you don't always have self-belief. Like, sometimes you do need someone to say to you, and it does give you a confidence. So that gave him a foundation, and he gave him the belief as well. Once Imran believed he belonged, he did what all the truly great ones do. He stopped measuring himself against average opposition and he started chasing who were the best of his time. And the best batsman he ever bowled to, he's very clear about who that was, and I'll tell you about it now. Viv Richards is the only exception. Viv Richards was head and shoulders above all the batsmen in WSC, and he remains the best player at whom I have ever bowled. The bouncers were wasted on him, for he had reflexes like a gunslinger and he was quick enough to hook off the front foot. He didn't bother with a helmet, relying on his superb eye to get him out of trouble. The fact that this guy had no helmet, I mean, I've read about Sir Vivian Richards and heard about him from other cricketers, and this guy just had an aura about him. Like, he had this bravado, this confidence. If you watch him walk out into the middle, he walks with a swagger and like almost he has no fear in the world. And the fact that he's against a legitimately fast bowler in Imran Khan. He was once ranked third, I think, in a fast bowling competition behind Dennis Lillee and Michael Holding. So he was fast. He didn't bother with a helmet. And it's worth stopping him because it's almost an unbelievable level of self-belief. And here's a key point. Facing someone like Viv Richards forced Imran Khan to be better. You can't bowl lazy lines to him because he'll punish you. And so Imran had to think a little bit more deeply. He had to bowl more precision and he had to be more dangerous than he would be against anyone else, because this guy would tear him apart if he wasn't. And so it proves that you become the level of your competition. If you only compete against average opposition, you'll become an average player at best, and you'll occasionally perform well. If you chase the best, they force you to grow. And the same exact thing happened with Federer and Nadal, two of the greatest of all time, and they spent their careers inspiring each other and making each other better. And this is from Roger Federer's book. Federer inspired Nadal to improve his backhand, shore up his serve, and move closer to the baseline. Nadal inspired Federer to upgrade his net game, rip his backhand with more authority, and seek out new coaching advice. You see, the greatest rivalries don't just produce great matches and great viewing, they produce great athletes, because the standard that other person sets forces you to find something that you didn't know you had. And there's so many great rivalries that we could come up to. There's Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, there's Ronaldo and Messi. There's so many, and they force the other one to do better because they both want to be the best. And then when Imran Khan, he talks about the greatest bowler of his era as well, Dennis Lillee, and notice what he admires first. It's not the pace, not technique, but the character. He fights all the time, never shirks responsibility. He came to Pakistan in 1980 and took just 3 wickets in 3 tests, but he bowled his heart out, trying every tactic and keeping up his aggression. That's a sign of fast bowling greatness. When it's hot, the wicket is slow, and your side needs a breakthrough. Dennis Lillee never gave up. See, 3 wickets, 3 tests on a dead wicket in the heat. Those stats are nothing to die for. But the fact that he's still bowling his heart out and he's still trying everything, that's the definition that Imran Khan carries with him, and that's who he wants to be. So it's not about having the perfect conditions to perform, but it's showing up and giving your everything when the conditions are completely against you, and that became his standard. So we've talked about the obsession, the humiliation, the rebuilding standard that Imran Khan chased, but there's one more layer to this, and this is the one I think truly separates the great from the merely excellent or good. At some point, Imran had made a decision not just to work harder, but he chose a specific identity and he committed to it completely. I realised that I would get nowhere on the hard slow wickets by bowling English style medium pace to a defensive field. The only way I was going to get men out was through speed. That trip to Pakistan made up my mind. From then on, I would be a fast bowler or nothing at all. The days of compromise were over. So fast bowler or nothing at all. That's more of a philosophical decision than a training one. He looked at himself clearly and he must have realised that the version of himself that he was building, he had to draw a hard line. There was no more hedging. He couldn't choose medium pace bowling, and the reason why medium pace bowling was in his mind is because in the English conditions you can get swing and you can get seam movement, whereas in the subcontinent, especially in Pakistan, they're dead rubber wickets where you can't really get anything, so you have to rely on a hard, fast pace to try and beat the batsman and get them out. So it's very different to the English conditions, and that's the choice that he made. He wanted to bowl out all out express pace. And so, again, it's what separates the great athletes from the good ones. At some point, you have to stop trying to be everything to everyone. They specialise, they try and focus on what their best skills are, and that's who they decide to be. They focus on that one thing, they become better and better. And he backed this up with fitness standards that were brutal and non-negotiable, and you wouldn't really find that even in this day and age with the current Pakistan team. It's something that they could probably learn from, to be honest. He said this: I had decided that fitness was to be a crucial element in my efforts to be a fast bowler at the highest level, so I doubled up on my training program before the final test. To me, the issue was a simple one. I wouldn't be able to concentrate fully on my bowling if dogged by fatigue. I had to be supremely fit. So there was a simple logic to it. If you wanted to bowl fast, he had to be fit, and to be fit, you have to train. And that's always how it looks with the athletes. Like, they have to train, they have to have good endurance and great endurance, and then there's the temperament as well. And this thing that can't really be taught, this was already in him. One of the reasons I was changing from a medium pacer to a fast bowler was my temperament. I've always hated taking a beating lying down. Consequently, I would find myself on various occasions being hit, forgetting about the swing, line and length, and just seeing blood in front of my eyes. It was during such moments of anger that an increase of adrenaline would add an extra yard or two to my pace. So, like with any fast bowler, he got hit and he became angrier, faster, and he just became more aggressive. So he didn't really find fast bowling, it matched exactly the type of person that he was, an aggressive person. And he notes as well that, from his people, his background, the Pathans who are from Peshawar in the north of Pakistan, he mentioned in the book that they're more likely to be fast bowlers because they have that extra bit of heat in them, that extra little bit of anger in their blood. And so it totally fitted his character. So I'm going to move on to his leadership, and here's something that happens to all the truly great ones at some point. Um, More responsibility arrives. And so for Imran, the shift came with captaincy and didn't make him comfortable. It made him a better player. A lot of players, one that comes to mind is Babar Azam. He's one of my favourite batsmen, but for a long time he's not been great. He has struggled with the captaincy when he got it, and his performance dipped. So some people will thrive under captaincy, and some people will falter because they can't do both. It's just not ingrained in them. The leadership values that you need to make a captain are totally different to what it takes to being a great player. So it's no wonder that he became captain of Pakistan, because he had already had some practice prior to that when he was playing for his university team. I was elected in 1974 Oxford captain, and my performances with both bat and ball picked up dramatically. Responsibility made me a better player. I started getting big hundreds as I played with more discretion than ever before. So it made him a better player. There was less pressure, but there was more responsibility on him, and that's what made him play within himself a little bit, and ultimately benefited the team, and he started getting bigger scores. And so he had something a little bit bigger to play for than himself. He was leading the team. He couldn't let him down, and once he had that captaincy, he couldn't let the standards slip as well. They became non-negotiable. Remember, this is the man who's picked last in Zaman Park before he was 16. Now he's walking into the Pakistani dressing room telling senior players that reputation means nothing. So the lesson is that you give the truly great ones something bigger than themselves to play for, and they'll raise their level. And I think that's a consistent trait across all of the great athletes and legends of our time. So once he had the captaincy of Pakistan, his standards became completely non-negotiable. Remember, this is the man who was picked last in Zaman Park at the age of 14. Now he's walking into the Pakistan dressing room telling senior players that reputation means nothing. Team selection wasn't really a problem on the tour. I told everyone that players would be selected on merits for the tests. Team selection wasn't really a problem on the tour. I told everyone that players would be selected on merit for the tests, not reputation. I had seen too much complacency among our players on the other tours, and it wasn't going to happen this time. So he wasn't taking any passengers. There were no exceptions. He'd earned the right to say that through everything that he'd been through just to get there. And then the vision expanded beyond just the team. He started looking at the entire system around them, the entire domestic system in Pakistan. All the first-class grounds, apart from Lahore and Karachi stadiums, are neglected. The wickets are badly prepared, the grass is badly tended, the outfields are bumpy, sight screens are often absent. If cricket was organised on a regional basis, spectators would be involved, support for their city or state would revive, crowds would flock to games, and the money raised could be invested back into the region to develop cricket. Imagine the kind of crowds at a Karachi/Lahore match. So most players play the game and they go home. Imran looked at the whole system and he saw exactly where it was failing on the regional level and how that impacts the national team. And he had methods on exactly how to fix it. And that's what happens when you have personal responsibility growing into something bigger than yourself. It's a different level of thinking, and that's what makes a leader. And it is no surprise that this man, he coined the term of corner tigers when they won the 1992 World Cup, 9 years after this book was published in 1992. And this is the type of leader that I took. And there's so many more highlights in this book that I could have spoke about, but I wanted to keep it very concise, and I wanted to focus on kind of where he came from and what turned him into a leader. And the one word, I guess, that sits at the heart of this entire story, I would say, is sacrifice. And he says it plainly right at the end of the book. As a Muslim, I pray every night for the strength to be honest in life and beg for health and happiness. I have worked hard at my cricket and the success has been doubly satisfying. My concentration on the game in the past few years has been so immense that I have had to discard many of my other interests in life, such as shooting, trekking, reading, and playing other sports. So the fact that he had to discard all of this, and he didn't do it reluctantly, nobody told him to do this, he done it deliberately so that he could focus on his game. He understood that greatness had a price, and you either pay it fully or you don't pay it at all. And it's a really inspiring book. It's such a sad state of affairs that Pakistan is in right now. The fact that he's in jail, there are plenty of people who hate him, who think he deserves to be there, but all I see when I read this book is a legend of cricket, a captain of Pakistan who brought them true glory when no one had belief in them. And he changed the mindset of this Pakistani cricket team as well. So I would highly recommend the book. It's a really short read. It's only about 160 pages long, Again, it's published in 1983, so it's about 9 years before the 1992 World Cup. So it doesn't mention any of that, but still really worth a read. He's got other biographies and autobiographies as well. I bought all of them recently of Amazon and eBay, so I would highly recommend it. But I hope you enjoyed that listen. It's the first episode on cricket, and what I'm trying to do for the next 10, 20 episodes is try and give you a very varied lens of what makes a legend across various sports, because what makes a legend in football might be totally different to someone in chess, if you count that as a sport, which I do. And there will be common traits that they have. There will be common traits of obsession and skill and practice, and that's what I love reading about. I don't know what it is. It's something that unites all of the legends together. I find it fascinating, truly, I do. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for listening. That's one legend down. The work continues.